In one of our earlier lectures, we talked about the different methods of controlling the sizes of fonts, but what I want to take a minute to discuss with you now is a technique that I find really useful to ensure that your fonts scale to the appropriate size. This is going to be the page that we're going to start working with, and you can see as I resize my browser window here, this page is working responsively. The text just reflows into the new size of the window, but the type itself is not changing. So we're going to go ahead and add some CSS rules that will allow the text to reflow depending on the size of the browser window. So let's just take a quick look and see the CSS that's being utilized so far. This page is pretty simple. All I really have on it is a div with a class of container that wraps around all of the content on the page, so that's just nested directly inside the body tag. I have an H1 tag, I have a paragraph tag, I have an H2 tag followed by another paragraph tag. The CSS that I'm using are embedded styles, and again they're pretty basic. I have a rule on the body tag that just overall sets the padding and margin. I set the font size, and this is an important declaration right here. Even though the font size by default is 100%, we're going to implicitly say that we want it to be 100% because we're going to be utilizing this later to resize the font size overall. I've also set the font family and a line height. For my H1, I simply set some margin settings on the bottom just to push the rest of the text away from the heading. I overwrite the line height that I specified on the body tag, shortening that up a little bit, and then I have a margin setting on my paragraph tag that just overrides the default browser margin, and then I have some rules on my container that simply set a maximum width of 30 ems so that the container that contains the text never gets larger than that, but it will shrink if necessary. And then I have some margin settings just to center the content on the page. What we're going to be doing is we're going to go ahead, as I mentioned, and we're going to make this page a little bit more responsive so that when the page is resized, we're going to want the text to grow and shrink. Right now, our text stays at a fixed size. It's staying at whatever the default 100% value is for text. So for instance, paragraph, the size of a paragraph font is going to be 16 pixels by default, so that doesn't change no matter what size my browser window is. So let's use some media queries and let's make this type a little bit more responsive. I'll go ahead and within the CSS that we've already declared, I'll create some new CSS rules that are going to be controlled via media queries. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a little comment in here just to remind myself that these rules have to do with having my type respond responsively. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a media query. So I'm going to use my @media. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set a minimum width of 700 pixels. And we'll go ahead and we'll put in some curly braces so that the styles that we want will occur between this particular media query that we're calling. So we're just going to say a minimum width of 700 pixels and we'll size the type accordingly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply make a rule for the body, and I'm just going to overwrite the default font size, and I'm going to tell the font size to be 110%. So I'm going to use percent values here because they're something that are scalable. And then I will simply close my curly brace, and it looks like I hadn't opened that, so let me just put that syntax so it's correctly written. So I just have @media, min width of 700 pixels, and then we're going to go ahead and set the font size on the body to 110. So let's just save this page and take a look in the browser and see how this actually affects the page. So here's my page. When I refresh the page, you can see that my type got substantially larger. My browser window right now is at a width that is larger than 700 pixels. If you look up in this upper right hand corner as I resize the browser window, you can see those numbers are changing right there. As soon as we get below 700 pixels, you can see right there the text jumped and it got a little bit smaller. So this is dropping down to the 100% size. Above that 700 pixel mark, the text is going to get slightly larger. It's going to grow by 10%. So you can see that that works really well. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to add some more media queries to make this even more responsive. I'm going to copy the rule that I have right here, and we'll just go ahead and paste this in. We'll change the condition here to have a minimum width of 800 pixels, and I'm going to change the font size here to 120%, and I think I'll just do this a couple times. So I'll just paste this in several times, and we'll just have this jump up for this example every 100 pixels. So I'll say at 900 pixels it's going to grow to 130%, and at 1000 pixels we'll have it go to 140%, and then let's just do one more just for fun. We'll say at 1100 pixel minimum width we'll have it be at 150 pixels. So you can see that I set all these different conditions essentially. I'm going to save my page, and if we go back into the browser and we refresh, as I resize my screen, if it's between, well, first of all, if it's under 700, the font size is going to be 100%. And you can see how everything is resizing, my H1, my paragraph, and my H2s. As I get bigger, everything jumps up a little bit more, and once we get past the 800 marker it's going to get even larger, and then once we get past 900 it gets even bigger, and then this is going to go on for 1000 and all the way up to once we get over 1100. So this is now our largest size. If I continue to resize my screen, which I know you can't see the right hand edge anymore, but you can see that the type doesn't get any bigger. But this ensures that my text is going to grow, and all of the text grows. So it doesn't matter if it's headings or paragraphs or lists or whatever, because I made my rule on the body and had that resize, everything kind of resizes according to those specifications. So this is a really handy technique for ensuring that your text works responsively in all sorts of different environments.